ice is really melting quick. It's like this is hot bourbon.
Cheers and chug this hot bourbon, and then I think it's definitely very hot.
So we put some boiling bourbon on ice to see what would happen.
All right, is it filming?
Yep, we're back.
All
again.
right, cheers, my warrior brothers. We roll again. Episode 2.
We survived long enough. We're here.
Cheers.
Cheers, salute.
All my drinking brothers and sisters out there, we're going with some bourbon today because it's a late start on the podcast. It's about 10 o'clock at night here.
So it's 7 o'clock on
And
the
we've
West
been
Coast.
playing out in the sun all day, and this bourbon is delicious and ice cold, and tastes pretty good.
We're hoping it gets us where we want to go. It's been a good day. Father's Day weekend. To all the fathers out there. G is one of them.
Oh, yeah. We tried to get our padre on this podcast today,
He is a little.
but he declined out of wisdom, probably.
So older and wiser than us.
He might have some controversial opinions and doesn't want to get the Alex Jones ban yet from all social media platforms.
Poor Alex Jones. So we were having a conversation the other day about, of all of our podcasting heroes, if we ever got in any circles with them, who would let us party with them? And we're thinking about if we somehow got invited over to a Joe Rogan watching the next boxing match with Mayweather and whoever the next person is, and we're worried about if he'd have us back after having us over once because of how rowdy it would be.
Yeah, I think that's not his scene.
And we figured
Full on.
we figured we'd end up in the Alex Jones crowd instead and be partying whenever Alex Jones was partying because that motherfucker parties pretty hard. So I think anyone who would have Alex would have us. So we might have to party with Alex someday if Lord's ever willing.
Is Alex Jones still on the podcast circuit, or is he might be suffering from some personal problems other than just a banhammer by all of polite civil society?
I don't know. I think Alex Jones has a huge media empire he's built that's pretty strong.
Shouldn't he have his own podcast?
Yeah,
He can't be completely blocked.
What's it?
He has,
InfoWars.
he has his own website, his own InfoWars, where he broadcasts live 10 hours a day of just him talking.
But they may have all the Google blocks, so it can never come up no matter how much you search it.
No, I think if you go InfoWars.com, you can probably still watch it. But
Personally, I've never searched that. I would be willing to.
Jamie,
Check
look
the
that
live
up.
search, see if there
InfoWars
is,
is live and Alex Jones is
Alex
still
Jones
out
is-
there preaching the good word, or if he's been banned from all media. Also, just because we like Alex Jones, please don't ban us, Google, or
Also,
the powers that be.
I don't know if we necessarily. I don't know all his views, and I'm sure we don't agree with all his views.
He's as far out as you can get on
We
every
just
topic.
like that he is a freak. And also, we'll
a freak.
take this opportunity to launch our new political party, Freak Power, which actually was invented by Hunter Thompson back in the 70s, but I'm now identifying as a Freak Power candidate instead of any of the current political parties.
I think we could shout out Joe Rogan for his freak party endorsement. He's always
Yeah.
going to go
So
about that.
let's take this opportunity also to put forth the Rogan Trussell 2024 presidential candidate.
To get into the deep of the politics right away. But yeah, Joe Rogan, Duncan Trussell. It's time where we no longer select the people who want to run for office. The people have to speak up and run out and pick the best among them. And Joe is the best of us. So let's get him on. Get him in the office. Make him
Joe,
run
I
this
know, I'm sorry you don't want to be president, but we need you, so you're going to have to be it.
I don't know if you heard the first criteria is if you self-nominated yourself and said you wanted to run for president, you are immediately disqualified from the presidential candidacy. And
Should be that
That's how
clear.
it should be, yeah.
Whoever you get the polls of who's running, and then you say, all right, you guys
Throw
are
out
out.
those people.
Everyone else in America,
select the
you're-
best
go
people
ahead
you know.
and vote from the rest. These guys have disqualified themselves immediately. That would be a much better system rather than what we're doing today.
I also condone group of people. I mean, we have a good checks and balance system, but
We do. And I feel like even within that, yeah, we don't have the council that would be ideal, but I think I like to think that there's some group think going on, and they're bouncing ideas off of each other.
So we were at a family barbecue a minute ago, and we have some pretty cool, popular, controversial opinions on both sides. And so we're getting to talking about politics, and the right-wing people were hating on Joe Biden because he's apparently pro-abortion. And these family members of ours are Catholic, and they immediately said Joe Biden's not really a Catholic because he's pro-abortion, and they want him excommunicated from the church. And then we had a cool left-wing guy there, and he's like, oh yeah, what abortions has Joe Biden had done, and what have he performed?
Check his track record.
And then they said that he's actually paying for a bunch of other abortions. And then the left side person said, no federal money in America goes to abortions, which I have no idea if that's true or not, but that's a pretty good rebuttal to abortion Joe Biden claim. And then they came up with the theory that actually he's sending all kinds of money overseas to do overseas abortions.
Really getting deep now. I don't know.
So actually, all the aid that America sends to every country goes immediately straight to abortions.
That might be a hard rabbit hole to check out. To follow the funds.
I also don't know if any of that's true, but that seems very unlikely to be true. That 100% of our aid money goes to foreign overseas abortions.
Joe Biden would be really pushing the abortions if he's that's what his cabinet's doing.
So then they're like, so what is this branch of the government that's giving all these abortions overseas? And Will said it's Abortions Without Borders. Is the branch of the government that performs infant overseas abortions.
Suddenly new popular this election, Abortions Without Borders.
So this is how the right-wing Republicans are painting the liberals, and I don't think there's any liberals out there who are Abortions Without Borders proponents who say, yeah, this is a good idea and this is what we're doing. Let's send all of our aid money overseas to do abortions. So I think this is just a good example of how the two parties aren't even
right
seeing
caricatures the left,
exactly.
and the left can caricature the right, and
it's just a
talking over each
total
other.
Farce and a cartoon, and there's no way that we're just sending
Which is
money
why
overseas
politics
to do
is too hilarious of a topic. They say, like, at family gatherings, don't bring up, like, politics.
Religion, politics, or the Great Pumpkin.
It's really not because it's too serious of a topic. It's because it's child's play. It's like, yeah, all right, let's talk about something as lowly and comical as politics at the adult table, where you vote for one person on each party that's predetermined, the GOP and the DNC. It's not a worthy topic to bring up, not because it's too serious.
it's
It's too ridiculous.
It's beneath. It should be beneath us.
name calling, and he said, she said.
Except that politics is one of the most important things we have going. It guides and runs our whole global civilization. So unfortunately, it's a point where it's a ridiculous caricature cartoon, and we need it to be somewhere else and better. So freak power forever, baby.
Freak power forever.
Free power.
I'm not a political scientist. I never played one on TV, but I've heard more intelligent people like Jordan Peterson talk about how we have a really good system going, and that we don't have sweeping changes all the time by our government officials. It shows how steady our ship is, and
Exactly.
we don't need to have it rocking completely over every
The less
day.
your political system resembles the Browns front office, the better your political system. You want
Yes.
you want the Steelers' long, enduring foundation.
Exactly. Instead of complete turnover every year, start from scratch 100% of the
That
time.
usually leads to more reliable systems of operations.
So to piggyback off of that, Jordan Peterson says both sides have a really good idea. Liberals want change to improve the world because we need that. We need to be constantly improving.
Exactly.
And Republicans want conservatism, keep everything here. We got foundations that work, so let's keep those. So what everyone who should want is a mixture of these. We can't rot in our original foundations while the world changes around us, and we can't just throw away everything that works and change infinitely every time. So we need some combination of both sides.
And that's
For sure. And they say I guess most of your political views is biological. Just your personality type largely determines Republican or Democrat.
Yep.
And for sure, you need the balance. It's not the future utopia is not going to be one party where we are all homogenous. It's going to be the push and pull for the different times and what's needed, and whether finding change when it's needed or keeping with the.
So is that the argument for the two-party system? We should have two parties, one's this way and one's that way, and we just tug in opposite directions and find a happy medium?
Well, I think they have some gaping blind spots where they throw fisticuffs on these certain big name topics, and then they completely ignore other topics like drug reform. It's one they've ignored for about the last.
Probably both parties work in tandem for some terrible ideas.
The drug war.
The war on drugs. We should probably be trying to get the mushrooms and the plant medicines out there as much as we can.
So an alternative to the two-party system would be have 10 different parties, and then each of them have completely whatever they think is best on all the different views, instead of having two parties where your views are completely locked in on these topics in this direction, this other party where your views are completely locked in
And you trade
in
back
the
and
same
forth for
opposite
what
direction
you guys are doing.
on those 10, and just because you're in this group, I have to sign up for all 10 ideas, regardless of how much I like them, and instead we need enough parties so that we have all the different combinations of all the views, and then you can pick what's best about all of them.
But we still need some reasonable people to pick reasonable solutions and answers to these topics instead of just whatever
But yeah, I think no
You
matter
were-
how many
throw in the hat.
parties you sparse it out to, with all the current issues that are going on that will continue to arise, and you can sparse that out. I think the big things really are, though, those who are looking for the change. I mean, those are the two that encompass the biggest circle of it.
Yep.
So I think it is ultimately
Change
going to be
versus-
pretty much two parties.
Yep, change versus
At that point.
order, chaos versus order.
The people who are trying to always be ahead of the step, get the change before we run into the problem or whatever, and then those who are too stubborn and want to keep it the same way long after we need the change.
Yeah.
And that's why no matter how we splinter it, those are the two big personality traits, it seems like,
So these
according
are-
to those who have
So these are the
researched
black,
this more than
these
myself.
are the black holes that just suck them to the two sides, and then we're stuck there. Piggybacking off of the personality traits that determine your convictions, I would like to see the study where it compares what your family history is and what you're raised as, because just like everyone is whatever religion their parents taught them from birth, isn't everyone start out as whatever political party they've been taught from their mother's knee up until?
I'd say a large percentage for sure.
So I
The
wonder.
vast majority of people that changed from what they were raised as were people that hated their upbringing and their folks. So
It is,
it just shows that how good.
So those are two conflicting.
but that
opposite
is
theories
a
about
very
how-
interesting study. I don't know who out there is pursuing that. That first one went down pretty easy for you.
If anyone. So these are really small glasses with really large ice cubes, if anyone's wondering. But yeah, bourbon's also really good and
Been
delicious.
wondering, are they
and
big cans or small glasses?
Do we
They're small
know
glasses.
know anything about the bourbon? Can you give me a little education on bourbon, Big Brother?
So all bourbon has to be made in America, and it has to be at least 50% corn, and it has to be at least 80 proof to be qualified as bourbon. So
I like those
Whiskey's
standards.
made in
So
America, in
vodka
Kentucky.
could technically be bourbon.
No, I don't know the difference between them. Enlighten me.
Well, I mean, you could have a
Unless-
corn vodka
unless I-
that's over 50%
I just know the
corn.
sound it makes when it hits the back of my throat.
Bourbon is, well, Evan Williams, what's that? Tennessee distilled?
Kentucky.
Kentucky.
Kentucky's
That's
the
good
bourbon
spot.
capital of the universe.
That's the Jim Beam
Yep.
location.
Vodka's pretty good, but bourbon is where it's at for me.
I feel like you can sip on bourbon easier than you can sip on vodka, but that might just be my upbringing.
Oh yeah, is vodka even a sipping liquor at all? Do any?
I think I
I've
know a
sipped
person
on
or
some
two.
vodka
Well, yeah,
before.
true. I think Dan Aykroyd.
I know a
had some
drinking
good vodka.
buddy who sips on vodka out there.
Well, yeah. There will be guests who will have a cup of vodka before them.
God willing,
God
if everything
willing.
goes well.
Deo Valente.
Deo Valente.
But I like that point. So, yeah, politics, I don't know if it's more than other things, I guess like occupation or other beliefs, but definitely grounded, inspired by your upbringing to a great extent.
Yeah,
But it also would lead to, I guess you're getting the same genes if your forefathers, this is your family line,
Yeah.
and they tend to lean this way to
Right.
more creative or looking for change. Their children might also have those genes, and it's also great. The nurture versus nature argument.
Yeah, they have crazy scientific studies where they somehow tease out those different variables, but I don't know how they do it.
Very,
Have they done
very
before?
carefully.
Yeah,
They definitely
really.
can tease out
Yep.
variables.
But I don't know if that's been done.
But I guess that would actually be a good, because I think nurture versus nature is an ongoing argument in all fields, but politically would be just another way to test it.
For sure. And I think it's always a combination of both because regardless of your genes, your environment determines whether they're expressed at all or to what extent they're expressed. So it's always a combination of both, ultimately. You can have the sweetest corn, and if you don't water it, that bitch is going to die.
So you're saying nature and nurture are pretty much
It
close to
require-
equivalent,
it
or
requires
they're
some
always both
no,
active?
it requires some combination of both. It's never 100% nature or 100% nurture. It's some combination of both is the ultimate.
The 100% nurture is when you build an AI robot or clone a human being, and
And
you're
give it all of its.
There you go.
Loving.
There you
That's-
go. That's a nice
But
100%.
You've heard
But
about
that's nature's being programmed by you. But
you are the nature in the
Yeah.
natural force.
it's that nurture nature.
those identical twin cases where one's adopted, and
Those are
it's,
crazy.
you're assuming it's two different nurturings, but they're completely the same person, against crazy odds, where they will be the same occupation, marry the same type of woman, dress the same,
Yeah.
have such the same things. So
Yeah.
that's almost that would kind of lend to it's almost a lot. Well, it's a lot of nature.
Yep.
It's almost all just the genes, the
Yep.
biology.
Yep.
Those are really fascinating.
Yeah, those lend to all.
And I don't know
nature.
what the opposite case would be, where if you take two random people, give them like the same type of father in West Virginia and the same upbringing.
And they turn out to be the exact same.
Are they
although-
going to turn out the exact same, or are they going to be way different? Because I think I think nature may
Well,
be.
You could also have the one where you get the exact same identical twins and then raise them in exact opposite environments and they turn out exactly
Yeah.
differently. And then that would favor nurture over nature.
Where they because
So
there's probably
instead of
cases
it-
of
yeah,
identical twins where
instead
they
of
meet
it-
each other and oh yeah, I've got nothing in common with you. It's
Yeah.
not like we're destined to be
I think
brothers or anything.
we're a pretty good example right here. We're pretty similar brothers brought up together, but not all brothers or all siblings are. Some siblings don't get along at all. Some siblings hate each other and they have nothing in common. And
Yeah, we definitely know
But
siblings who
they have that in common, then they both hate each other. So they
Well,
just have a different personality trait that instead of lovers,
but
they're
they
haters.
not only hate each other, they don't hate each other because they're so alike. They just have different interests. And
good
it's
point,
like
good point.
this guy. Well, that's actually
we
really
all
common
did turn out to be clones
to
of each other.
see. Well, I mean, you'll see the athlete and then the artist in the family.
Yeah.
And they'll be brothers, but it's completely different interests, completely different body
That's
types and makeups.
gotta be nurture at that point. That one guy had their interests cultivated and they nurtured towards
So they were nurturing one direction.
running 1,000 yards a season, and one was nurtured.
No, because they're nurturing them all the same. They wanted to nurture the artist to be a 1,000-yard rusher in football, but he still went off on the artist.
Exactly. And you as a father, I'm sure, noticed this, just the different personalities from birth.
Yeah,
How different.
we've been getting some definite feedback between the two offspring about their different personalities, but we also have a male and a female, so that also goes in there. So.
For sure.
So a good example of that was the Wedding Crashers family with the tortured artist kid.
Exactly. That's a great one, but that's really common in real life.
Yeah, it's a fictional example.
Wedding Crashers, though.
When the shoes they put on don't fit and doesn't grow the way you want it to grow.
Oh man! So also, there's the people with the giant alien Parasaurolophus skulls that grow back in the big sagittal crest because their skull's been binded in this weird shape since birth, and that's a good example of nurture.
Well,
so the natural head has one particular
That's a rare, random example of a different thing.
I'm not saying that's wrong, but I'm going to say that depending on how you view your upbringing, it's going to depend how many of the traits of your parents do you carry along with you, or how far you differ, how far you want to fall from the tree. If you didn't like the way that they viewed the world, you probably won't continue to be a communist if you're raised in a communist place where you got no food and no water and no
Definitely
love.
lends to how it's both factors, because there's the people who are like abused as kids, and then they'll be abusive parents, or there's people who are abused as kids, and then they'll be
the best parent
people,
ever. Because they're like, wow, I'm never gonna put my kid through that.
And it's like, so what works? Is it and but that just shows that it's not it's not the nurture with that. They're different types. There's definitely people who will continue the abuse.
So
and
many
then
factors
they'll
and so many variables.
The greatest parents ever, and they'll be like, "How are you such a good person?" It's like, I had some completely shit parents.
Yeah.
There is a fantastic quote in the movie Blood Diamond. I got my first viewing of it.
Was that DiCaprio?
It was DiCaprio, but
great actor.
I've never seen that one. Dang.
there was this fantastic quote in it. There's this school teacher who's been raising these kids, and now they're getting picked up and turned into child soldiers. They're getting kidnapped from their villages,
man, that's
and
so
they
dark.
get nurtured into being just child soldiers.
Oh my god.
And he's like, do you think humans are born inherently good or inherently evil? And it's something like, I think we're all just humans, and we do good or bad things. And
Nice. Yeah.
Another
crazy.
big part of it, of like,
Definitely crazy.
are there bad apples from the start, or they're just fucked up?
The sociopaths.
So
Are there
people are just
any-
born defective.
Are there any with
essentially,
perfect
or-
upbringings and taught to love and nurture their whole life, and then they're like, "Fuck this!
Yeah,
I'm gonna go kill everyone
Yeah.
everyone I can."
Exactly.
And get
There's
away
some
with
people
it.
who had probably the perfect middle class upbringing and given everything that you would give a normal infant, child, middle schooler, and they're I don't know,
just
they
the
go-
thick of the
they
bell
go
curve
off
all the way down
their
in all
brain.
categories, and they turn into...
A brain is a probably sensitive and complex machine, and I'm
The
sure there's
most-
ways for it to be very screwed up.
I'm also not a neuroscientist.
The most infinite and complex machine thus made in the universe is
I
the human
just
brain.
like to think I have a brain. Oh, how do you know you have a brain? Have you seen your brain?
Oh, that was awesome.
I like to think I
you
have
heard
a
that
brain.
So in 2010, Will and me and some other drinking buddies went on a cross the country road trip to Southern California. This is in preparation for Will going to college the next year. He's starting a senior in high school that
Prime
fall,
of
right?
life.
Yep, fall of 2010.
It was, I guess before senior year.
We do an epic road trip.
Before senior year.
We're in Southern California. We're all urban camping, wearing huge backpacks in Los Angeles. And we find this roadside. It's like in the old days
Five
when there's
hillbillies out in
No.
Los Angeles.
Yeah, that's us.
Where the
But
hell
there's a man up on a soapbox preaching to everyone, and he's a young Earth creationist, and he's the
Ben
greatest.
Shapiro.
Yeah, he's the greatest debater ever, and he's just debating the whole crowd. There's like 60 people there, and he's on a stand, microphoning it on the street. What fucking street was that, Will? It was literally...
He's literally on the soapbox. He's on the soapbox.
It was in Santa Monica. There was this one street that was completely overhung in lights. It was like a street of Las Vegas, but this one creationist was just debating the whole crowd.
It was...
Did we answer back to that? Is that a sound we make? All right, so there's... sorry guys. There's comical practical jokes sounds coming from the alley.
Pressing the
Jamie, we'll edit that out later. We'll find that spot. That'll just be it.
So this guy's up on the soapbox, and Dro did that exact line and said, What do you know? I know I'm a human, I have a brain. And he's like,
this guy's a professional debater, just trying to lure in people from the crowd who are just
unwitting.
I've never
assholes.
publicly debated anyone, but I want
pulling the Socrates where he's like, hey,
That's what-
let's find the baseline. Let's
Thomas
see what
Wines
we actually know.
That's
comes in with
exactly
his
what Dro said. Once we
perfect
got
rationality
off the
and
street, he's
reason,
like,
but
dude,
he's
he just
facing
Socrates.
a jiu-jitsu
He
debater.
Socratic methoded me.
And
It's like,
is-
how do you know you have a brain?
Yeah,
Have
it's
you
like,
seen it? Have you
oh,
touched
shit,
it?
where you-
No, yeah, that was it. Dro said, well, God's not real. And he's like, well, what's real?
how do you
Things I
define
can
real?
see and touch.
Things I can see and touch.
He's like, have you seen and touched your brain? And Dro's like,
Is like,
and
no, there's,
everyone would
there's
have
pictures
said
of
that
brains. Have you ever had
exactly.
a photo scan of your brain? No. So there's things you believe in that aren't.
that
you can't see
you haven't
and
seen and
can't
touched.
And
So seen and
Now
touched.
you gotta make a new.
Even if you get your brain scanned, you're just putting faith that
The picture.
the caricature
For
that drew a picture of your brain is giving you
There's so many.
true visual images
You
of
know
your
what
brain.
this
You're
is?
putting your faith
This is a
in.
great argument for trepanning. Have you heard of this?
Oh, that's where you drill a hole in your
You
head?
drill a
I
hole
don't-
in your skull and check to see if you have a brain. And
No,
Is that the
something-
point of trepanning?
I think the moral is, I guess, something. Well,
this
That's
is an
not the
argument,
moral.
if you're empiricist, about you have to see and touch it to know it's real, that you should trepan. And I'm not recommending
this thing
trepanning.
is a million degrees and should probably go in the freezer.
I was telling you, you had a boiling bottle of
I
Evan
would-
Williams.
I
Did
would
you keep
never
that in direct
Let
sunlight
the
all
record
day?
show, I would never trepan. I would never recommend trepanning to anyone.
Yeah.
But
Bad idea.
on the last episode of Hamilton Morris that I saw the first half of, he interviewed this amazing acid queen from England who took up trepanning and trepanned self-trepanned
Really, and
is a trepanning
she-
proponent.
gives a normal interview.
Yeah.
She's completely lucid. She just has a couple holes in her.
Well,
skull.
I
Have you
hear-
seen any of the Hamilton interviews? I don't know if there's anyone I would say is no. She's not completely normal. She's an acid
she clearly
queen who's
has.
trepanned
Well,
herself.
we don't know. It's mostly the
self-trepanned.
acid,
So
probably.
she's a completely normal
She's
person.
a freak
I
power
heard-
goddess.
I think Hamilton Morris might have talked about that. On
And
Joe
her
Rogan, but I-
parents raised her to trepan?
No, I think she was from a straight edge family and went into trepanning later.
Nature and nurture are both.
But I don't
both
know.
big.
I don't remember the whole story, but she was definitely pro trepanning. And if you're an empiricist, then you only know you have a brain if you see it or touch it.
Yeah. there's-
Maybe trepanning's for you.
Well-
Also, trepanning's not for me, and it shouldn't be for you.
Also-
so don't trepan.
I think it's really
Party, no trepanning.
it's a really hard world to live in where you don't trust anybody else. So I'll trust the person that has seen the brains inside of humans and says that we have brains. I don't
Exactly.
need to crack my head open.
Exactly.
That sounds like some ploy by someone that wants a.
There's lots of things we take.
Yeah,
Once-
for granted on the weight of the evidence.
Most of our entire culture
Yep.
is just.
So yeah, if you get in a Socratic battle with that guy in that alley in Santa Monica, I have to see it or touch it to know it's real. It's gonna go down the toilet real fast.
I think at that point I might have to try to argue flat Earth with him just to see if he can
Well, yeah.
handle flat Earth arguments
You
first.
could for sure become a professional debater, a jiu-jitsu master, and go out with the flat Earth, and then just defeat a bunch
Abuse
of
all those
guys
people
who
in the
are.
alley.
If you wanted to.
If
do
you
that,
wanted to just start converting people to flat Earth, you
all
just
the
learn
poor
how to
drinking
debate.
buddies happen to be walking the alley one day.
you could do that. It's definitely an art of
Yeah, the
Of debate
jujitsu.
and conversation.
There is definitely an art.
which
exactly,
William
an art and a
Lane
skill.
Craig, great debater.
I
made-
fucking love
is-
William Lane Craig. Shout out to
Yeah,
William Lane
William
Craig.
Lane Craig is a smart man, a genius, great debater, and Bill
was-
Nye. evidently not a very great debater.
I
Even though
love Bill Nye
he's on
100
the
times
side
more.
of reason and rationality, and clearly his views are accurate.
So that
but he's not a
goes
good
out.
debater.
Yeah, shout out to Bill Nye and William Lane
Or
Craig.
actually,
I
I
love
think Shermer might be the worst debater.
Burn! Michael Shermer, we can't wait to have you on the Drinking Buddies podcast.
Shermer has
You
had
can't debate your way out of a wet paper bag.
underwhelming debating career. I'd have to credit Shermer.
Oh my gosh. So,
Although I love his reason and rationality.
yeah, Bill Nye was about to lose that debate to William Lane Craig, but an audience member in the Q&A saved him. And that was a classic. But until Jordan Peterson came along, William Lane Craig was the number one, my favorite Christian debater. And then Jordan Peterson has all of the tools. He's a
We need to see Jordan Peterson talk to Lane Craig.
five-star athlete. That's a great idea.
Because Jordan took it to a whole new stratosphere. He was the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu introduction to the world before that of just strictly boxing.
I saw a couple Jordan Peterson talks with this bishop who's apparently a fiend on social media. So there's some Catholic bishop that has a presence, and Jordan Peterson talked to him twice and had regular Jordan Peterson.
A Catholic bishop?
Yeah. And Jordan Peterson was given the business a couple times, but he didn't press it. He's like, so why do we have to have these miracles? Why do you think Jesus literally rose from the dead? And he was pushing him a little, but
did he have any response to that? I'm sure he had some sort of answer,
like a long explanation.
There are miraculous things that happen, and while we might attribute them to chance, nurture.
He didn't take that path.
This is something you watch? There's actually a video of this conversation?
This bishop's been on there twice.
Is it on Jordan's podcast?
Jordan's podcast, yeah.
Nice.
Well, you could flip a coin a bajillion times and it could never land on its side, but you could also flip a coin once and it could land on its side, and that's just probability, and that's the way the universe is.
What's the probability?
Freaky deaky Dutch.
It's 1 in 10
literally,
bajillion.
A statue could wave its arm, not likely in the existence of the universe, but
if you smoke
quantum
enough,
mechanically, there's particles jumping from place to place.
They don't jump that far, though, do they?
No, they could. It would just take way longer than the length of the universe for it to happen. But given an infinite time scale, there's going to be some miraculous goddamn shit going on.
And if you're on enough drugs, you have a much more likely chance of seeing these miracles occur in every day. Which I feel like should be argument for doing more drugs, but I've never heard that one used.
That's why the freak power
argument.
Because
if you want to see a miracle happen,
the war on drugs
start
is
doing
the
drugs,
thing.
and then you're guaranteed to see miracles. Well, that's a pretty good argument.
There are greater ways to reach. There are
Suppose
faster ways
there's
to enlightenment.
someone who is in desperate need of seeing a miracle. All they need to do is do 5 grams of magic mushrooms.
I think drugs make you more appreciative.
Yeah. Also, you'll come back and be like, fuck, this shitty life is awesome. Thanks, guy.
It's definitely. Is it the drug or just being on a crazy trip?
Yeah, I think
exactly.
you get.
Which is it?
It's probably a little of both. If I have anything, it's probably a little bit of both.
Once you go on such a long voyage, you come back with a different perspective.
Exactly.
And if it's a harrowing voyage, even more so.
You know what Mariner was made for?
Mariner?
Yeah, the ship. It's just the name of a ship.
Isn't that the name of the sailor? I thought anyone who rides on a ship is a mariner.
Okay, maybe. Do you know what the Mariner was made for?
So there's
what is the
specific
Mariner
boat
made
named
for?
the Mariner?
Okay, it wasn't for sitting in the harbor. It was made for venturing into the deep water.
This is a Hunter S. Thompson quote.
I think it's an Aubrey Marcus quote
I'm sniffing
about
out
a beautiful, pristine ship sitting in the harbor and say, that's where I want that.
I'm sniffing out Hunter Thompson at the bottom of that one, baby. He says, what's better, to be a pristine ship that sat in its harbor its whole life, or a fucking wrecked ship that sailed the entire 7 seas and came back with Jack Sparrow at the helm and slid into the harbor as Jack stepped off the crow's nest onto the dock.
Hunter was all about being rode hard and put away wet.
Slide in, broadside into that parking spot after running over every curb on the way there.
Oh, man.
But he didn't have any pedestrian kills that I know of.
Jesus Christ.
Those-
Trey, don't dig those up.
Or the writers of
Zero
history.
pedestrian kills.
Leave those out.
Although we were delayed on the way to the airport when a stingray killed a pedestrian. Is a line from Fear and
Coincidentally,
Loathing.
they're driving a red Stingray.
They weren't
No,
dri-
they weren't driving a red
Yeah.
Stingray is a thing. So it's just that whoever
We're-
identified the
yeah.
car had no idea.
We're delayed
What
en route
car was.
when a red stingray killed a pedestrian.
I had that full experience. I went to Hawaii. It picked me up in a army-issued Humvee, drunk out of his mind, drove me around the island the entire week, Gonzo style, and no fatalities.
It's really, yeah.
He's a safe. It's just
You know-
being a good person and driving
I'm
safe.
totally-
Zero fatalities, completely safe the whole time. Yelling at other people for their traffic violations while completely drinking.
I'm totally
Moscow Mules
against
and
killing people with
high
your
on
car.
marijuana.
No one should ever
High
kill
on
people with your
synthetic
car.
marijuana.
The drinking buddies do not condone killing people with your car.
Yeah.
But I will say that most fatalities by cars are not by the veteran alcoholic drunk drivers.
It's
It's by
Statistically
rookies.
speaking,
It's by rookie drunks.
it's by
fucking
underage
negative
kids
rookie,
that
man.
just got their license
That's why
and
you
just
play on
started
Legendary.
drinking.
and people who are doing coke and talking on their phone. It's by douchebags
cell
and
phone
assholes.
texting, man.
Yeah.
That's the leading.
Don't be a dick.
Douchebags and
Don't
More
be
assholes.
likely
a
to kill
douchebag.
by cell phone texting.
Oh, for sure. You're more likely to kill yourself and others by texting on your cell phone. So don't text. I'm not a
Yeah, for
full
sure.
drinking
Fuck
I don't
buddies.
condone
Texting while
texting.
driving.
Drinking's 100% against texting and driving. Let the
Yeah.
record show.
Put your phone away.
I
Both
know.
hands on the
off
wheel.
before you get
10
in
and
the car.
2.
So I'm not the first one to be support this. I think Joe Rogan's probably talked about it and a million other stand-up comedians. But they're like, we invented the phone, and now we could talk to each other over long distances with the phone. And then we're like, you know what would be even better than talking to each other is texting each other and not even having to talk to each other.
Texting is superior to talking.
What?
It depends on what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
They both have their places,
Definitely.
and sometimes no communication is the best option.
I think the old hand wave is very sufficient for a lot of things.
All right, so here's
The old thumbs
here's
up.
the best face-to-face conversation.
The hieroglyphs are coming back.
Here's the next best phone call, text message.
Face-to-face conversation.
Well, there's
There-
some things that are better
Microscopically
delivered
away.
by pen. Or there's something it's
Letter
yeah,
writing?
there-
I think letter writing is vastly superior to
Letter writing
texting.
delivered by an owl
I
over
mean,
the ocean.
If I have a one-liner ready, I don't want to call you up and say it to you. I can just text that to you, and it's
Definitely.
like, all right, that's
Oh
a
my
good.
God.
That's what the text is.
Have you
for.
ever called someone to tell them about a meme that you just saw? No, you send them the meme. That's
So
how
there's
it
things,
goes.
there's
don't
definitely a time
know.
and a place for these technologies.
My good buddy Nikolai and I. It doesn't matter.
Shout out to
I could
Nikolai.
be just calling him up for a one-liner,
Nick.
but then we could easily just start drinking and talking on the phone for another hour and a half,
And then
it would be
next thing
glorious.
you know, you're hammered. It's 5 hours later. And you're like,
And
man,
it's
that's
like-
a good joke.
Oh man, I could have just sent you a one meme text
But how
or
much better would that have been if you knocked on his door and said, Nick, I got a joke to tell you, and then
Exactly.
you ripped fatties and drank a 30 rank of
personally,
of
I would
lights.
prefer the face-to-face.
That's what I'm saying. That's what we should be doing. We should live in small tribes,
Well,
in
yeah.
hunter-gatherer villages,
That's
and hunt
clearly the way to
together.
go.
Well,
The,
we get this
uh,
glorious
cul-de-sac
society we
is
have
the future.
today with the.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to have a toothache in the medieval times.
Well,
Or appendicitis, and your appendix is about to explode,
Or
and your
a
gut.
staph
That's
a
rough.
little infection on my leg.
Well, I'd be your Dr. G, and the first thing I would do is
50
not-
cigars a day
I
and
guess
5
it's
pounds of cocaine a day.
pretty
Just
incredible.
like
The badasses who back
Ulysses
then
S. Grant.
made it the full 65-year-old age. who were
Exactly.
Like, the minor cut will
Shout
kill you.
out to all those
You
motherfuckers.
Break your ankle in the river. Your tooths are rotting out. Your
David Hume, 63.
Viking attacks, and then you just are a badass.
There
Aristotle,
were
63.
a lot of good
Plato,
doctors.
80.
Really?
Socrates, 69.
So that would lend.
Shout out
that
to all you bad
intelligence
motherfuckers.
Is a really important part. More
Well,
than
no,
Brian.
no.
Brian,
Because there was 10 dummies that lived that old, but no one knows their names. So intelligence is being remembered, and intelligence and
There's
Oh, no, I lost the thread.
this Dan Carlin, who's another
Savage motherfucker.
savage motherfucker. Like
Great
he
podcaster.
was a podcast. He was a radio person.
fucking
He's a
genius.
reporter. Like
Yeah,
he's
he was
he's
in
got
technology too. He almost invented YouTube before YouTube was made.
he's very ahead of the curve. Like
Brilliant.
he's up there. But on Spotify, he only has so many podcasts. I haven't figured out how to just subscribe
He has a lot on YouTube
to
too.
all his hardcore histories yet. But
I think you buy them on his website.
I haven't visited his website.
We have no
I have
affiliation with
Spotify.
Dan Carlin, but if you're looking for
He's-
them, I would recommend that.
I would welcome him in my
Dan Carlin
drinking
could
corner
teach us a thing or
anytime.
two
I think he'd fit in.
You know what?
I
we
think
need?
I'd fit in.
So
We'd
suppose
be all
in
rub
some magical
shoulders.
universe we get Dan Carlin 1, Dan Carlin 2, we're going to have Uncle Mari
Yeah.
versus Dan
The
Carlin.
dual
Oh,
podcast.
The duel,
yes.
And it would be
and then we'll just,
a brilliant-
we'll have to have a 24-hour podcast where they talk about history the whole time.
And I'm the only limits on the podcast is how long they are willing to go. I mean, it could go like 13 rounds and then one of them could KO before the other and
I
say,
think they'll both be in heaven. They'll probably be like, guys, we're going to which state allows gay marriage?
They're gonna talk about
as soon as it starts,
French Napoleon era.
Yeah, exactly. We'd have to have a 15 hour
Or World
podcast
War
based on any era.
as soon as it
Dan
starts,
Carlin could do World War I all day, but
we'll have to pick up more recording devices to record their conversation because it's going to be so
we'll need some
glorious.
advanced sci-fi for that.
Speaking of which, sorry about Drinking Buddies 1, technical difficulties, losing the visual after an hour 25.
Yeah, we definitely want it to be full visual, but
We may or may not piece this together in the future, so I don't know what you're saying.
on that same thread, Drinking Buddies 2, we're using a half memory card, and we're about to do the same thing with a blackout for the second half of the podcast.
Well,
For sure. We
there's
only
some
have
bumps in the
But
road.
Drinking Buddies 3 and onward is going to
we
be
have
full
max
video.
2 hours and 20 minutes of video tonight.
And that's
Hey.
gone, and then we're just going to be full blackout.
I still have. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yes.
So-
Give it to us, Trey. Give it
Okay.
to us.
So there's this filthy.
Filthy. Shout out to Memorial Day 2019 or 2020.
Brandon Sheb's friend Brian Callen has this joke. He's like,
What?
Brandon Shep's friend is Brian Callen. Brian
Yeah,
Callen's
they're
Joe
like-
Rogan's oldest friend.
no, the Fighter and the Kid podcast is Brandon
Okay,
Sheb
okay,
and Brian
okay,
Callen.
okay.
Okay.
Brendan,
Sorry.
I don't know if Schleb's his last name.
It's definitely Schleb, right?
We got it. Schlev and
Shit out of your
Callen.
mouth.
Finish the joke.
Okay. Well, Brian Callen has this joke. He's like, ask me how many pedestrians I've run over.
Trick question on the way here or lifetime?
Well, you just gotta ask the question.
How many pedestrians have you run over?
I don't know. I've never looked back, but I've never run over a pedestrian in my life. I'm just saying. I'm
we
going to
almost
clarify
got
that.
you. Almost a confession.
I've never run over any pedestrian. But
That's
the
a good
point
joke.
of that, I was trying to call it back to this. I don't know what you call it. Just something that a common phrase we all say. Bump in the road. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of
Wait,
the phrase.
Archer. Can Archer give me this?
Bumping the
No,
night.
this is his favorite phrase. Is the common everyday phrase. Idiom.
Idiom. It's an idiom.
The
That's
Archer
right.
idiom.
No,
Pulling that word out of the ether. somehow.
File a cabinet, baby. It's
Idiom.
in there. It's in there. Bump in the road.
Definitely
That's why they called it bump in the road.
doesn't. Well, I think.
Because there's some
Dark.
poor drunk bastard passed out on the
Dark.
street from the
Dark.
way over
Yeah,
the bar.
it's not that
And
you
you're
were
driving
a
your
bad
Model T
driver.
home, and it just is like a bicycle wheel going over him, and it's a bump in the road.
Every time you're driving home, it's a suicide. They're
Yeah.
just waiting for the next car
That-
to pass.
that's
They
not-
jump out in front of you, and you're like, shit, did you see that was a cat or a person?
It's not the driver's fault if you run over a pedestrian in the road.
Yeah.
Unless-
Definitely not. At night.
No,
Unless
at
you're on the
nighttime.
sidewalk.
No, yeah,
Unless
if
you're on
it's
the sidewalk.
if it's nighttime and you run over a pedestrian in the road, only if the
a motherfucker
pedestrian
wanna commit
is
suicide.
laying in a crosswalk. Then
No, you're not allowed to lay in crosswalks.
you're not allowed
Crosswalks are
running
for
over
crossing.
people laying in crosswalks.
Yes, you are.
What if it's an old lady
Crosswalks are for
that had a stroke
crossing.
in a crosswalk?
That was her bad luck. You don't have strokes
You're not
on
allowed to
roads.
run her over.
You
It's
don't have
just
strokes on roads.
ours is well, you're if it's like you're on a highway and it's dark out and someone's laying in the
There's
road.
no crosswalks on highways.
Yeah.
End of story.
Okay, yeah, but I'm saying you can't run over anyone in a crosswalk.
No, you absolutely can't run over anyone in a crosswalk unless it's nighttime and they're laying down.
Yeah, if there's
How would you
someone
ever see
on
them?
the ground? That's the bump in the road.
That's the one time.
That is the bump in
If
the
they're
road.
laying down sleeping in a crosswalk, you absolutely run them over because you would never have seen them until you already felt the bump
I have
in the
a
road.
second point to this joke about this idiom.
Jesus Christ,
The
this got dark
question
and fast.
is,
What do you do, Trey? Watch Harsh Times today or something?
Harsh Times is a really dark movie. I don't want to recommend it unless
Shout
you are
out
ready
to
for a
our
dark trip.
Brother Christian Bale, I love him.
Christian Bale is one of the great actors
Oh my God, of our generation.
of our
If he's in
generation,
our
but-
generation.
Shout out to
Christian Bale. All right.
He
Dad, hope I
outlived
didn't
Keith.
take you off track.
No, you're good.
You were good. Go, Trey.
So the question is, was the idiom, is this another bump in the road? Did it come before or after motorized vehicles? Like, whenever you would pass out and your horse would walk you home,
Stagecoach.
Excellent
You
question.
wouldn't-
Dan Carlin could tell us this in a heartbeat.
you might be like, oh yeah, there's another bump in
It's
the road.
absolutely certain that
But
we
if
could
you're in a
find out.
And I would say
stagecoach
before.
and you have
Yeah,
a stagecoach
exactly.
driver and you're like,
There's probably
stagecoach
like a
driver,
dead
get
horse.
me
There
home.
was-
And then your stagecoach
All right,
driver
there
runs
was
someone
2,000 years of bumps in the roads, and then there was 100 years of cars. Which phase of time do you think it came in? Definitely in the first 2,000 years where they're just constantly going
Maybe
bumps
it's
on
a
the
dead
roads.
horse. Maybe
Yeah.
it's a dead bull. Maybe, it's a
Maybe
dead
they're
cowboy.
beating
Well,
dead
maybe it's just a
horses.
pothole. Maybe it's
Maybe
just
they're beating dead
the
horses.
water runs
Maybe there
on the
was
road
no
a little
roads.
rough. It freezes.
No roads were
Pavement,
paved.
lots of
Freezes.
bumps in
Yeah,
the
there's a
roads.
lot. There's a big fat old root right here in the road.
Are any of
All bumps in
the
the
drinking buddies listeners going to love we all shout above each other? I hope so, because that's going to be our thing.
I've heard Joe Rogan try to say it one at a time, motherfucker.
Yeah,
One at a
Joe
time,
Rogan
motherfucker.
tries to.
The louder you talk, the more.
I think it's just another bump in the road. I think everyone's shouting over each other
What?
is better.
If we're all shouting the same
Better.
thing, though.
I think
What-
it makes your voices clearer.
Exactly.
and it
Well,
just-
we have to have a twist on the JRE.
We'll fix that post.
It helps us enunciate better.
Yeah,
since
we're
we all
really
are
bad
the
enunciators.
really good enunciators and speakers here.
What if we do a whole 3 hours of talking over each other the whole time? There's at least two people talking every.
You guys did a 3-hour podcast and none of you could share the conversation space. It was everyone telling the story at the same time.
I could not do a 3-hour monologue by myself, but with you guys, I could easily shout over you.
No,
Yeah,
more
we
reason.
know, Dad. Trey, you're sweating bullets over there. What's the approximate temperature?
I'm about to start stripping.
I'm getting nervous because I'm watching Trey and there's beads of thread running down his nose. And it's like,
These sweat drips on his nose are huge. It's like I've never
You
seen
see-
a drop that big.
I'm gonna credit that to my years
sexual tyrannosaur.
of having a good heat coolant system in my body where my body is about to overheat and die, but luckily I can sweat these bullets and
All right, if we want to do another
Let
shout
me
out,
overheat.
if we want to do another shout out to HST,
Also, those gigantic cubes I put in here would be still full if the liquor was a regular temperature, but we are
if you had kept that liquor bottle in the freezer
this liquor is
beforehand,
literally
Will, I
steaming.
ripped on you
Well, we-
earlier today. I was like,
Will,
so
my-
you're just gonna keep your liquor
I keep
on
my
your
liquor in my freezer 50% of the time, and this was 50% of the time when it was out.
Hey.
So it's
Will, that last one had no ice cube. That was a lot warmer,
yeah,
significantly.
we could get. I could
Gee.
do an ice cube check.
So you are a scientist, if anyone's a scientist.
Jesus
You're a
Christ,
biologist.
I'm a drunken.
Okay,
idiot.
you're a
I'm
drunk.
drinking
You're a
buddy.
drinking buddy. Okay,
Drinking buddy.
but you also may or may
I've
not know
heard
a little
the thing
about science.
Continue the joke.
So there's these things called like ultra mixers or something. They got like a magnet and a heater, and then you put a metal rod in it, and it spins, and you heat whatever you got in your beaker.
Yep.
Will kept the Evan Williams on one of those all day, heating them.
You sandbagging son of a bitch. That had nothing to do with science, and no, he didn't.
I keep my Evan Williams on top of my fridge. Room
Are you
temperature.
trying to show me your bullets?
Room
You're sweating.
temperature in my
It
room
should have been in the
apparently is
freezer.
90 degrees.
Well, it is June 27th in Ohio.
Hey man, this is
Is
what's
this-
that show called that stars The Godfather and it's a Tennessee Williams play and it's set in New Orleans. And he's a wife beater.
Yeah. I
Cat
know.
on hot tin roof.
Not that one.
No.
Cat on hot tin roof.
No, no, no,
The car,
no.
A train car.
Train car named Desire.
No. Is that the one?
Streetcar named
Brando's
Desire.
first one, where's the wife beater?
Streetcar named Desire. He definitely lived in a shack just like mine, 90 degrees in New Orleans all year.
Yeah.
And that's what I live in. And he,
Bring it back, Will. You got
Marlon
it.
Brando definitely
it back.
drank fucking hot liquor all
Okay.
day long in his streetcar
No
named
wonder
Desire.
he was so angry.
Yeah.
I'm living
It's
here in the summer in
2021.
Ohio, and we're in our New Orleans shack.
right.
We're drinking our liquor, streetcar named
Shout
Desire
out to
style.
1950 Marlon Brando and Streetcar Named Desire when he was living in New Orleans in hell in 1950.
That's
I thought
where
we
the
progressed a
modern
little
is.
bit.
We don't have air conditioning. I'm still back in the Tennessee Williams play.
All right.
But maybe that lends credence to the simulated universe theory that I'm not living the 21st century. I'm living in a Tennessee Williams play with my drinking buddies, drinking hot liquor.
Two huge great rabbit holes to go down. I want to go down both of them. The hot liquor theory and the simulation theory. Those are both really good ones. All right, so on the hot liquor theory, I got two happy jokes on that. Shout out to HST Hunter's first novel, The Rum Diary. They lived in Puerto Rico at the exact same time that movie was being filmed. It was 1950.
Were they drinking rum?
120 degrees year round. And Hunter would pay $10 for a bottle of rum and 10 cents for a bottle of rum and $1 for a bag of ice to put it in.
Fuck yeah.
Because that's how
Ice was
fucking
a
hot it
huge
is.
invention.
Exactly.
They had to sail that down in a
10 times-
to get it to that island.
10 times the amount of liquor he'd pay for ice.
You don't get ice in the south.
That's
You
how
have to take
fucking
that
hot
to
it
the
was in
North
that
Pole.
Marlon
You have to
Brando
go
woman.
to the north to
That's
get ice and
how
bring it
fucking
home.
hot it was in that Marlon Brando movie, and that's why he's being his woman the
I
whole time.
It's a
don't
long
know if you
shipping
guys
process.
think about the 10 greatest inventions of all time ever, but
once in a while.
on my 10 great, is that a book?
It's a book.
Well,
And it's a glorious book.
I've never read that book, but I do have, I like to think I'm an inventor. I've never invented anything, but
Stu Pickles over here.
Yeah, I've never
He looks
invented
a lot
anything
like
ever in
Stu.
my life, but the refrigeration technology to keep things cool
Will you
was
close it out immediately?
Well, I
fantastic.
didn't refill. This was my second.
Finish the joke. It's
I'm just
fantastic.
saying
grab some
that
cubes.
that we invented the ability to refrigerate things and keep things cool and make
That was
things
an
cool.
improvement. That was a vast improvement
I'd
on
say it was
not
an
having.
invention on top of where we would just bury things in the ground in the coolest spot
Are there
on
enough
our
of those to
Earth.
go around?
Yeah, but they make it's a cannonball, man.
We're about to have to refill that.
This is about to save my life. All right, so
10 greatest inventions, man, for refrigerators.
yeah.
The ice cube.
That was your
what do you
joke,
call
right?
The ice cube.
What did the ice cube tray?
The ice cube tray.
Tray,
was
you
one of
didn't
the
remember the
10
ice
great-
cube tray?
Yeah,
It was your
yeah,
name
yeah.
of your actual self.
No, I'm saying the refrigerator.
Oh
It's
yeah,
definitely on the list.
definitely.
Well,
for
maybe
sure.
not the refrigerator, but we figured out that
Whatever
we
fucking apparatus cools things down by adding energy to it, that was definitely.
Well, I don't
so
know
you could have a freezer or refrigerator.
exactly
based
how
on, yeah.
that works, but I do know
Definitely going in the top 10 inventions.
you know volume, pressure, temperature formula.
I'm familiar with some of those.
Increase the pressure, you increase the temperature. Decrease the
What's
pressure.
just name the actual formula or it all equals.
It's
in
like
the little-
V equals T over P or something like that. V equals T P or
I think it's more complicated than that. And there's
no, it's
several-
really
This is what I
simple.
wanted to
Like
come back
as
to.
you increase or decrease volume, you increase or decrease one over the other.
That's crazy. How changing the volume is going to change the pressure.
If you
for
increase
sure.
the pressure, it increases the temperature. If you decrease
Definitely.
the pressure,
Yeah.
it
Yep.
decreases the temperature.
Yep.
The faster the
Yep.
molecules are bouncing.
And it's just
Isn't that
Yep.
temperature?
So how's volume change the
well,
speed
you see,
of the molecules?
we invented
So
this thing
the
called
more volume, the less pressure. And we just said that we knew what pressure increases temperature, so the more volume, the less temperature. So if you spread it, if you go out in the space and you have some molecules and spread them out, then your temperature goes down. So yep, we got all the relations there, I think.
Well, I was gonna relate it to that divisional line, that over under, denominator, numerator, and how
Of the Browns 2021 season?
Denominators below, numerators above, and one correlates with the other
Exactly.
somehow
Either
better than
inversely proportional or directly proportional.
I'd have to review the notes I wrote 8 years ago whenever I was
Definitely,
in school. But
Here's what we can agree upon: if you increase pressure, increases temperature, and
Yeah,
if
that
you
sounds right.
decrease pressure, decreases temperature.
Always? Or is that one of the things that's like not
and
necessarily?
if you increase
Yes.
temperature, you
I'd
increase
say
pressure.
increased temperature or increased pressure always increases temperature,
Yep.
and decreasing pressure necessarily decreases temperature.
No, it always decreases temperature.
Because
And it also
it's the speed. So if you
well, I
put-
mean, you need a constant there, like the volume stays
yeah,
constant, maybe.
definitely.
The container.
It would have to, yeah. Because we're changing that too.
Like,
Then
if
it's
you
same with
keep-
gas.
I think that's the trick to the formula. Like you have the constant temperature.
One of them has to stay the same
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
And then the other two relate. You can figure out what happens from any of the others.
PBT,
VBT, VTB.
PBT. But there's also this exact beautiful relationship with electricity too.
Which is even more glorious. Like
Yeah.
electricity
Oh my
is super
God.
dangerous. Is the thing about electricity. If you don't know how to handle it.
Only now that we are inventing infinite electricity.
Yeah.
I guess with lightning was still pretty.
You know.
All right.
Well, electromagnetism is one and the same.
With regular magnetism, electromagnetism, and magnetism, or
No, electricity
I don't know,
and
I
magnetism
heard-
got combined in their electromagnetism. So we had magnets earlier.
oh
one-
yeah,
Then we got
we
electricity later,
That,
but they
wait,
got
so what?
combined in
Yeah, that's like what,
electromagnetism.
one side of the same coin, or
Yeah, they're really, really closely related.
fascinating. I highly recommend you go to school and read
You
about
can
it.
create an electric field with moving magnets, and you can create a magnetic
can
field
create-
using electricity.
you can create an electric field with moving magnets, and you can create a magnetic field with electricity. Because
Yeah.
electromagnetism is one umbrella,
Yep.
and there's
exactly.
only
one umbrella.
Wait,
there's
You
only
told
a
me that-
certain number of laws that we're trying to unify, and electromagnetism is one of the big ones. And then there's a couple other that we're trying to get under
Yep.
the toe, the theory of everything.
Yep. We got electric force, magnetic force,
And you gotta-
gravitational force,
and electric-
small nuclear force, and big nuclear force.
And those are all
Infinity.
those are all things that your theory is gonna have to encompass whenever you publish it, G.
No,
As the greatest physicist among
I'm
us,
not,
those are
I'm
all gonna
not
be things.
pretending. I barely know this five. I'm not pretending to
It's
have a
so
Well, then
good
those are all
though.
theories that Eric Weinstein's gonna have to
Yeah,
put in his.
exactly. Eric Weinstein is the man you're looking for. It ain't me, babe.
No, but you can
I'm
also beat
not
him to it.
The one you want,
Not
babe.
gonna condone going to class drunk every day, but
Never.
I am going to say
What you do if you don't want to learn anything, you're paying to learn.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you would not
I
do that
am
at
going to
You're also-
say if you do go to class drunk every day, don't go to the final sober. You want to go to the class drunk because it's a thing called state-dependent
Fuck.
learning,
Chad,
where
that's not real.
if you've never heard of state-dependent
I've
learning,
heard of it. It's a fucking farce. You learn something when you're hammered, and then you have to be hammered to remember it. No, that's not how it works.
But eventually,
Just
if you
learn it
always learn stuff hammered and only learn
There's
stuff
no-
hammered, you're
yeah.
gonna
you'll
There's
be
no way-
very,
there's no
very,
way-
Maybe not
there's
one
no
reason
way-
fact.
like, you won't even be
0%
thinking about the test.
chance-
You'll be like, "Where's my liquor? Where's my liquor? Where's my
0%
liquor? Where's my liquor?" And then
Sober,
the
you
test's
can't
over.
remember, but then hammered, you would. That doesn't happen.
Well, maybe not hammered, but there's other variables, like what chair you study in and what
Yeah.
gum you
Okay.
chew and what coffee
Okay.
you drink.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
called
that.
mojo, I think,
I went
and
right
it's
to,
part
I
of the
went right to
toe.
hammeredness, but yeah.
We're always hammered.
The other-
Clearly, we're always hammered, and that doesn't help anyone.
The other factors of state-dependent learning definitely help. Yeah, you want the same music playing, you want to sit in the
Yes,
same chair. Yeah,
exactly.
that's all true.
Okay, Garrett's gonna
I
go
can
into the
see-
test, and instead of your favorite music, we're gonna start playing
Oh, yeah.
Depending
some
on what
white
it is.
noise and
No.
If it's a Drinking Buddies article you've been researching that's all about being a wasted Jim Morrison, then perhaps drinking bourbon is going to actually make you a better
You don't
author
think
of that
you'll-
article.
you'll
you think
alchemically
you think
reach
sober you would
out
recall
to?
all that better?
Definitely not hammered on bourbon, but a couple drinks of bourbon and one
Well,
glance through my
wait,
favorite
what's-
Morrison
what's-
autobiography, and
I mean, I
maybe a
don't.
small toke and definitely a fat cigar, but that would help.
Wait, I don't really remember James Douglas Morrison, but did he have a song about Alabama?
He did, in fact.
Was it
James
about?
Douglas
It
Morrison.
was a cover by Brecht.
That's what you're calling
Kurt Brecht.
Jim these days?
That's his actual name. What's.
Well, I'm just trying to
Well,
sandbag
that
G.
sounded like a
Most
fucking
accurate
president.
I'm trying to
I know, doesn't
sandbag
it?
this. It does.
That's what his father probably would have wanted him to do.
Shout out to James Douglas Morrison's
And
50th anniversary of his death. It's
I think
July
that's disrespectful. That's James
Honestly-
Douglas Morrison is his father. Jim is who you're talking about.
No, I think after I read all
3rd.
these
Will,
war
are you
books,
thinking he's Jim Douglas Morrison the 3rd? Or 2nd?
The second, yeah.
He's not a junior.
Well, I definitely have never heard the lead singer of the Doors called James Douglas Morrison
Are you
before.
shitting me?
Never.
That's what he
never.
went by in all his
Fucking
poetry.
never.
All his poetry. That's
you've
what's
never
written
read
written on his grave.
what's it
That's
called?
his
The
name.
American poetry or
Jim.
something? American poems?
Yeah,
Hey,
exactly. That's what friends call him.
Guess what? You get off the plane in L.A. What's your name? Rayman Zurich. What's your name? Jim.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not like he's not a fucking prick like Rayman Zurich. Jim,
Exactly.
all right?
Hey.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying.
Hey,
He gives
What's
a
your name?
nice smile at Jim. Not
You
fucking
gave the-
James
you
Douglas
gave the-
Morrison,
you gave the
motherfucker.
Joe Thomas smile too. He's like,
Jim.
shakes his hair back.
He just says Jim.
Jim.
All right.
And
So
everyone
it's
else,
Jim to you.
everyone else gave their name, their age, and their instrument.
And you're
He's
gonna
like,
try to pull James Douglas Morrison rank on me?
Yeah,
exactly.
so
That's
he-
his fucking father.
That's what's written on his death certificate and his birth certificate. That's what Trey's saying.
he went to the Pro Bowl.
I'm talking about Jim.
Yeah.
And he
You're
got
talking
interviewed
about
by the
Jim
first
and
person,
talking
and
about-
everyone else is like,
He's talking about James Douglas Morrison. You're talking about Jim.
it's his
You're talking
first
about Jimmy.
Monday Night Football appearance
Everyone's
in the
friends
NFL, and he's like,
Jim.
Trey Sermon, Ohio State University.
The Ohio State University.
And then he's like, Jim.
Yeah, that's who he is.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. how
And then
it
I said his
That's a
name.
perfect
I'm saying
reproduction.
James Douglas Morrison once said, may or may not have once wrote a
Forgive
song.
me for not immediately knowing
Yeah.
that.
Fully forgiven, my brother.
Yeah.
I love you more now than I did before. I'll never love you more.
Just